Hello, it's Hani from Haniela's here. Welcome to my YouTube channel and thank you for clicking on this video tutorial. Today I'm going to share with you how to make scary eye cookies for Halloween or for any time you need some scary eye cookies. So, without further ado, let's jump right into today's tutorial on how to make deliciously scary eye cookies. Before you can begin with the decorating, you need to make the cookies and prepare royal icing. I have both recipes here on my YouTube channel and also on my blog hanielas.com, and you can find these recipes by checking the description box. There are links posted there. So let's start with the irises first. So I've got my template here in a protector sheet and I'm piping 20-second consistency royal icing directly onto the acetate sheet. Here I'm adding neon green into the darker green and using the scribe tool, using the zigzag motion, blending the greens together. And now we're going to use the scribe tool to drag the black icing into the green. I love this so much. This is such a cool effect. And after this, we are going to add the pupil. That's going to be in the middle. So that's the black icing. Again, about 20 seconds. Now going around the edge, blending the edge a little bit into the green. And now we can add the reflection. I'm also going to add tiny, small reflection dots. And for this, I am using 10-second consistency icing and my scribe tool to place the dots onto the green icing. Here is another take of this design. This one is purple. You can make these in so many different colors. For Halloween though, I really like blue, purple, bright green, orange would be really nice, or pink is fantastic as well. And once you're done making all the transfers, you need to let these dry. It's best to let them dry on a flat surface and let them dry overnight, and then you can use them on your project or store them pretty much indefinitely. Here is another design. It's similar to the previous one, but it's slightly larger. These irises are gonna go on 3-inch cookies. And you can see I didn't do the black outline. I'm immediately using blue and then adding lighter blue on the top. And we're going to blend these together again using zigzag motion and a scribe tool. And then we can add the pupil and reflection. You can again make these in so many different colors. After you're done piping these, let these dry overnight and then you can airbrush the edges. Here's another idea. In here I'm not using 2 shades of the same color. You can see I'm just using red here, and you can do this with orange. If you use orange, that would be kind of like a almost like a dragon eye or something like that. You could use orange maybe and yellow. Yeah, different I'm just having all these ideas in my head now. So now adding the reflection. Once these are dry, we're going to airbrush the edges. To make this a bit easier, I cut up my transfer sheet so I can handle each individual iris by one, and I'm airbrushing with black airbrush color here. And you want to airbrush just the edge here. You don't want to airbrush the whole thing. So go lighter on a trigger. And you can see I'm going around and just very lightly airbrushing the edge. It also helps to keep your fingers onto the acetate, or if you're using parchment or wax paper, you would keep your finger on there. This helps to keep the transfer in place, otherwise the airbrush, the air can kind of lift the transfer a little bit. And now we can remove these from the acetate. It should be fairly easy once these are dry. And it's cool. I love how these turned out. So cool. And so to decorate the cookies, we're going to use basically white icing, red icing, and pink icing. So I'm starting with white base, and I'll show you several designs and we'll talk about different things. So in all of the designs, we're starting with white icing for the base, and that's 15-second consistency. You want to use your scribe tool to smooth the icing. And we're going to add the iris in the middle. So this is called dry on wet application, adding the dry transfer onto the wet icing. And now I'm adding veins, and this is wet on wet. I'm adding veins, piping red icing, 15-second consistency onto the wet base. And you can see the red icing is sinking into the white. For those of you who are struggling with bleeding, if your colors are bleeding, especially if you're adding transfers onto the white icing, you can also skip the transfer and do the transfer later, and I'll show you that step as well. Now I'm using my scribe tool, shaping the veins, accentuate the points here, and then we can forget about this cookie and let it dry. In this second design, you can see I didn't add the transfer in the middle. I'm just adding the veins, and we're going to let it dry and then follow with the airbrushing. And you can add the transfer, the iris, later on once you're done airbrushing. That's for those of you who maybe your transfers are not dry yet, or maybe you are experiencing heavy bleeding when you add the transfer onto the white icing. And these are the smaller cookies. On these I will use the irises that we made at the very beginning with the black outline, which I think are so cool. In this design, however, I'm going to place the irises off center. So, and also we're going to use pink for the veins, not the red. When doing wet on wet like this, wet on wet real icing decorating, and if you want to have really fine lines, it's better to make the opening on your, if you're using tipless bag, it's better to use to make the opening smaller, but because icing will sink into the white and it also spreads a little bit as it sinks. So if your opening is too big, your lines are going to be thick and quite bulky. And again, this should be about 15-second consistency, as our white base is 15. So your pink is 15 and it's going to sink nicely into that white base. Now I'm using the scribe tool, shaping each little line. Now we can drop the transfer directly onto this icing. Here in this design, just like before, we're just going to add the veins and we're not adding the transfer. And you can see I piped the veins off center. You can see they are not they're not starting in the middle of the cookie, because we'll be placing the iris off center. So you also want to make sure that you start piping the veins slightly off center. And you can see on one side they are shorter and on the other side they're a bit longer. In this 3-inch cookie, we're going to do also wet on wet veins, red veins, but again these will be off center. So I just wanted to share with you how to do these. So I'm starting here, and then as I go around I will make the lines a bit longer with my red icing. And again, use your scribe tool. If you don't have a metal scribe tool, toothpick works really well. If you're just starting with the decorating, you don't have to get all the tools all at once. However, for this step, you're going to need an airbrush. So you can see here I'm using red airbrush color, and I'm going to airbrush the edges. When airbrushing, it's better to do several light coats. Don't do a heavy coat. It's better to do lighter coats. So be mindful of the trigger. Don't pull it all the way back, because you'll have a burst of color coming and it's very hard to control. If you have this handy tool, it's really great for airbrushing, especially if you have to turn the cookie like this. So use your little turntable if you have it. Now I'm airbrushing with black, adding some depth to this design. So this is optional. I'm just touching the edge with a little bit of black here. Now we're going to switch, so you need to clean your airbrush, and I'm using pink airbrush color, and we're going to airbrush some of the cookies with pink. You can see the cookies with the irises that are off center. You need to airbrush one end, the end that is further from the end that is further from the iris. You can do a heavier coat, and then the end that is closer, you need to do a lighter coat. So I'm using pink for this, and we're going to again layer icing, which is really exciting because it creates such a nice depth. And so I'm using red airbrush color here, and I'm just touching the edge very lightly. Isn't this cool? And we can do the same thing on the 3-inch cookie. Here again I'm using pink here, going around a bit heavier on this end and then coming in a bit lighter on this end. And again we're going to do some red airbrushing as well. But before that, let's do this one without the iris in the middle. Remember, we did some that we added the dry icing transfers onto the wet, and then we also skipped some. So I wanted to share those two options with you guys that you have with transfers. And now I'm adding some red. And if you want to really get into the airbrushing these, you could also add another layer. Like this wasn't enough, you could also use some black just on the edge. So this would be 3 layers, right? This would be pink, red, and also some black, but that is optional. It's really up to you. You could just use one color. I really think it looks great with one color, but if you layer them, it just creates more depth and they look more realistic. So here I'm just touching the edge with just some black here, and also on the smaller cookies here. And now we can attach the irises. So on the cookies that we didn't attach the irises, this is how you can do it. Use a little bit of white icing. Try to use fluid icing. You can even use 15-second icing, and then very gently with shifting motion secure these onto the cookies. And here are the smaller ones. You can see again a little bit of icing, and then very gently glue them onto the cookies. I love how these turned out. So fun. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Which of these designs are your favorites, or if you have a favorite, and let me know if you will be trying this at home. I'd love to hear how it goes for you. And here are all the cookies. And again, recipe for royal icing and for sugar cookies is listed down below in the description box under this video. For those of you who are new to my YouTube channel, you can also tune in on Wednesdays. Every Wednesday I go live here on Facebook, here on YouTube, and also on Facebook, and we do live cookie decorating here on Haniela's. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. See you next time.